Gijs Honteins, literatūras profesors, franču rakstnieks, konsultants Eiropas padomē, viens no starptautiskās rakstnieku un tulkotāju mājas pirmajiem viesiem.
You helped, but you also helped a lot to Ventspils house.
Oh, not a lot, but I had something, yes, I had something to say to the politics, to the European politics and to the Latvian ones. Because I founded such a house in France and I know how it is a necessity for countries and especially for countries with many borders to welcome writers and translators for all Europe. This is what I said when I helped to the settlement of this house.
How many houses you visited?
Maybe 10. And this is one of the houses particularly working well. And I can explain you about some mysteries of this alchemy I can recognize here, if you want.
Yeah, that's my question.
Okay. So first of all, the staff has to be open-minded, and the staff has to know what an artist is, with all his craziness and with all its generosity. So to be open-minded is the first thing. Then money is the point, but absolutely not the key point. Some houses are richer than this one and they don't work so well. But here you have an advantage. That's
bad. We can't say that. Then they will not give us money.
Money is the key point, but not the only key point.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
a key needs a door. Yes. And so on, and somebody to use it. So, no. Opening minds, sharing cultures, discussing, loving languages, loving people. This is a part of the mystery, but I'm absolute. When I met people thinking of this house for the first time, I didn't know anything about Latvia. But what I knew is that the geographical situation wasn't so different from the situation of the house I had founded, because it's so easier to be international when you live on a border. It makes the difference. In this house, we are 5 writers today, and we belong to 3 continents. It's already something. Yeah. And we are 5 writers coming from 5 different countries, including Latvia. So it's impressive to be so different and to share something together. And in the streets, you may find some qualities of differences which make the interest of Europe and European culture. If writers and translators are so happy here, it's because they can share, they have something to share. They accept their differences, but they accept to create together a sort of cultural network. They accept to be universal or European. But you cannot decide this with a white horse. You have to create, and for instance, our aim, the network to which I belong, is to introduce the teaching of European culture everywhere, at school, for kids in the gymnasium and in the universities. Everywhere we want to tell to pupils and to students they belong to something which makes sense. Europe is not Brussels. Europe is not as a jackpot or a taxes machine. It's something clever. For 60 years in Western Europe we hadn't any conflict, any war with our terrible English or German neighbors. Due to Europe, for 60 years we live in peace, and we have now to try to prove we have a cultural identity. And European identity doesn't mean killing little identities such Belgian or Latvian or Portuguese one.
And you wrote, no, you did wrote, you didn't write, you collected all this together.
Yeah. I'm the editor of this book.
History of European literature.
Literaturas vesturi?
Yeah. History. What about future? Next book should be future, right?
Yeah. The next book will be the complement of this one, because it has been published 6 months ago, but the last chapter is to take into consideration the changes introduced in Europe by the fall of the wall. So we want to renew the last chapter, including contributions from all European countries, explaining to us what the fall of the wall changed in the cultural creativity, and especially in literature, in their country.
Vīķa Freiberga already in original version wrote the introduction words.
For us, it was so important to prove to big European countries such as Germany or France or the UK, then there is room for anybody in Europe, in European culture.
And now it's published also in Latvian.
Yeah. And I've appreciated it. You see, so the same book is published into French, into Greek, into Dutch, into Polish, into English, and into Latvian. So universal languages and languages such as Latvian, it's so important.
How you unite all these activities? You speak about politics. You create a scientific book. You create networks, but then you also manage to write something by yourself. Like how is that? You also have many roles.
Yeah. Ask my wife how happy she is with my way of living.
Yeah, but we don't have your wife here, so you should answer yourself. Everything
is combined. Everything is a puzzle. It makes sense all together. If I write an academic history of European literature, and if there are no students and no professors for European literature, it's nothing. So I have to combine introducing of the teaching of European literature and writing a history of the European literature. True. And then literature is, of course, my subject, and I love books. But why not? Because books of the authors are fascinating. Maybe I can try to play my poor part in the concert. This is why I've written a comedy. and so on. And after you want your comedy to be translated or to be performed, and les athées, the atheists, and it's a comedy.
And it's not played anywhere.
It's not performed.
So Latvia can be first.
Maybe, why not? Why not?
But it's not the thing that you are doing now during this month.
No.
What have you done?
What I'm doing is, I think this place is really fit for the work I'm doing now, because this blend of universalism and this blend of Eastern country, this fragrance of Eastern country you have here. So an old miner has died, coming from Poland in the very beginning of the 20s to work in France because of the crisis. So his family and him had to go to France.
Somehow popular story also for nowadays in Latvia.
Yes, certainly. Yes, certainly. So he came to France in a very difficult situation, and he couldn't speak any word of French, and he came with people from 30 other European nationalities, including Russian and Latvian. And when he was 70, he wrote his memories. And his French is good, what he tells is good, but there's no order. There is a mix of Polish and French, and it's handwritten with a beautiful old-fashioned look how beautiful is Hans' writing.
But so you don't feel like you are sacrificing like your time writing your books, you rewrite memories of other authors, yeah?
You see, when I pick anything interesting me, and when I discuss with my friends in this house, what they write or what they translate is odd, really odd. When they pick something interesting, they have inside of them the obligation of going on and doing it.
Yeah, we should think about comedy and other projects. Yeah, thank you.
Paldies. Merci.
Ģimene ar 2 bērniem meklē dzīvesvietu. Ventspili nepiedāvāt.
Šodien dzīvot, mācīties un strādāt Ventspilī grib daudzi.
Tur, kur liedas visbaltākais un jūras šauts vis tālāk. Tur, kur klaju apsveikti, kuģi un cilvēki pārnāk. Tur, kur priedas kā likteni un ventamē kodus kā dzīve. Tur jūras vārtu pilsēta, kā jūras vējš ir brīva.
First of all, I'm writing poetry in English only, although I'm Japanese person, and then so kind of rare case in Japan. And then not many Japanese poets try to write poetry in English. So I have not so many poet friends like me, but I have, and one of them is Yoko Danno. She was here and in this, writers and translators house maybe 2 years ago, and she had a very good time with Ileva and many other staff members working here, and she had a very great experience during 1 or 2 weeks. During 1 or 2 weeks stay in this country, and after she came back, she said, "Yeah, Gaurav, I mean, this Poetry Days Festival in Latvia is really nice, and it always happens every year. So maybe next year, why don't you go?" And I can just send the kind of my own recommendation to Poetry Days staff members, and maybe you can try. There is a very interesting house for writers and translators in a city called Ventspils. So maybe you can give it a try too, for that too. And then so at that time I had no idea about Latvia. I had no geological idea about where it is. I have never been to the Baltic region.
How it started that you write in English? So you need to see English dreams, you need to think in English, no?
Well, actually, when I try to write something poetical in English, first of all, I try to come up with a kind of rough idea, which comes up in Japanese in my mind. Or Japanese is my native language, so the rough idea always comes up in Japanese. But I don't write it down in Japanese. It just comes up in my mind in Japanese, in my mind only. So then I start to kind of change this idea into English one. And then many people ask me why I stick to English writing, especially when I try to write poetry. And well, I have a few reasons, actually, very clear reasons. One is that, first of all, if I keep writing poetry in Japanese, the only audience I can get is Japanese people only. But if I write something poetical just in English, I can get, for instance, a person like you. I can get if my Japanese poetry is translated into English or into Latvian or into some other language by somebody else, then maybe they can also go to those audiences. But I need translators, right? And I don't want to have my poetry somehow translated. So I just want to show my own works as they are to my readers. So
which means you need to have perfect English for that.
Actually, I don't know. I don't know whether the English language I'm using for poetry is perfect or not. But anyway, I don't like to just rely on somebody else as translators. I mean, so it's like kind of self-translation. I'm now translating my Japanese idea into English within my own system. One of my other reasons why I write poetry in English is that, for instance, I think it may be a kind of easy for you to imagine this kind of thing, but if I love the Japanese language, I love Japanese literature, but I don't like my own Japanese writing. Everything I just write in Japanese seems to me a very cliche like of thing, full of cliches. So, everything I write, every kind of poetical thing I write seems a kind of like a very ordinary, not anything new in that. So like I cannot like them.
But see, maybe it is true.
Maybe it is true. But see, that's okay. But if I write those same things in English,
they seem to be smarter. So.
No, but not smart. But they suddenly seem fresh to me, and then also because this language is my foreign language. Sometimes sometimes what I write in English is not in my control.
Yeah, because
Sometimes my grammar is strange. Sometimes my phrase and expressions are very strange.
and it's maybe more free because you are not oppressed by some grammar rules that you should know.
That's right. And in case of the Japanese language, I know the rules. I know all the grammatical rules
And
of
even
the
don't know,
language.
but you have them already
Right,
here.
and they just change they just kind of, I always try to kind of, confine my writing. Okay, Goro, you are Japanese, you're writing in Japanese, so you should know those rules. Don't get over them, okay? And this kind of mentality is already embedded through my Japanese education. So it's kind of very difficult to just go beyond this territory. But if I write in English, I mean, before I know it, my writing sometimes goes beyond this kind of the rules of English. So I don't show my writing to any native speaker of English. If I do so, they try to revise my writing. Oh, this kind of phrase is not in American English, so don't use it. No, this is my English. This is mine. So don't try to revise them. Okay, I'm not American. I was working in TV media in 1990s, and then I just quit the company at the age of 33 or 4, and then I started studying American literature by just going to a kind of master course of the University of Tokyo in Tokyo. So I started studying American literature kind of late. And I was a literature scholar, and I was accepted by the University of Hawaii in U.S. And I just went there. I just enrolled in the PhD course of the university as an American literature scholar again. So I was just studying American literature, and some poet teachers came to me and said, "It may be fun to study other people's works. That's okay, but why don't you start writing by yourself?" And then in English, oh yeah, just remember Conrad, just remember Nabokov. English was their foreign language, and then English is your foreign language, but you can try. There are many predecessors. You can be, I don't know, you may be able to be second Nabokov. And that was a very strange encouragement, but I was somehow encouraged. And then so I started writing, and so that was the year 2005 or 6, so still like less than 10 years ago. So I should say I'm a new writer. Some of my poems are just like short stories, just as you said. So that means before I know it, my poem writing needs a kind of narrative. And I always wish I could, write something much more wildly, without any clear narrative. But somehow I just find myself trying to rely on a certain clear narrative, even in writing poetry. I think that's where myself as a scholar slides in.
At the same time, you mix different storytellers, and then there's this beauty that there are like two stories mixed in one, like in my favorite poem of yours about camel and camera. And, it's exactly that the problem of narrative is solved because you have two narratives. You have a dialogue, and that creates another story. At the same time, which is also maybe interesting and rare, is that experience in your works is older than you. It seems to be like a camel and a camera could be the summary of all 20th century in a way. Have you noticed that by yourself?
I have actually. It's a kind of another strange habit I have as a poet, but I love imagining what kind of what kind of old man I will be in the future, and how I would die on the day of my death. It's a kind of strange, kind of weird habit. So I sometimes
so you're not thinking about your grandmother, but you are thinking about yourself being as old as grandmother.
Sometimes I do think about how my grandmother, she died actually some years ago, and I was kind of watching the process of her death. So I sometimes think about her. I sometimes think about my other family members who are old enough now, or who just died a long time ago. I sometimes do. But much more often, I try to think about myself as a much older man than I am, and I may be dying. How I'll be dying? What kind of death will be waiting for me? What kind of image I will kind of get in front of me the moment I die? And this kind of obsession with death, I'm not saying that I'm a kind of suicidal person. No, I'm not saying that. But it's a kind of, I should say, it's a kind of duty as a poet to try to forecast, try to imagine his or her own death waiting for him or her. And so like that's
it's written maybe even in the title, Responsibilities of the Obsessed. I just wanted to ask you, what are the responsibilities?
So as a poet, as a poet with those obsessions like that, just keeping those obsessions in my mind is not okay, I just believe. And then as a poet, I have to just show those obsessions in the forms of poetry to others, especially to ask them to ask them a question like, okay, this is what my imagination about my own death. How about yours? And then you also gonna die, in the future, and then maybe death is your own kind of subject matter